Lesson 5 of Professional Writing Skills focuses on effective email. So many of the tips and tools that we already covered apply for email, but we're going to dive a little bit deeper now into how to apply them specifically for email. So we talked already about the value of planning. Now, with the volume of email that we all receive, it's even more important to get our main point out of our message at the very beginning of the message, because people are reading email quickly, they're receiving, hundreds of emails a day, and so they're looking for the most important message quickly. So don't forget the planning process that we covered. Don't forget also step 1, which is looking at what you're writing from the reader's point of view. Okay? So they'll move quickly through their email if you haven't made that connection between what they care about and the information that you're holding. They're going to move beyond your email very, very quickly. Okay? So then get to the main point, your purpose rather, very quickly at the beginning as well. So you need to give somebody some information, or you need them to take action on something. You don't want them scrolling down again or swiping your message off the screen. All right? So compose that key sentence that delivers your most important message. In an email, it may need to be the very, very first thing that you say, and that you've gotten your point across very quickly at the very, very beginning. Okay, so compose that key sentence that delivers your most important message. That may be the entirety of your message, but therefore make sure that you've delivered it very clearly at the beginning. You use the same steps 4 and 5 to list your facts and ideas and group them into categories. So use that kind of brainstorming, fact-checking point to include everything your reader needs to know. We've worked with lots of different multinationals, and one of the key issues, we had a multinational bank with offices in Asia and also in the US, and what they found was that they needed help on both sides of the world, helping people write more effective email, because somebody might open a request or a ticket in California and then send it to Singapore, but it didn't include all the right information. So if you haven't listed and included all the information, when it got to Singapore, the person on that side wasn't able to actually do anything because he or she didn't have the right information. So it involved sending the information back, the email back to California, getting the information, and then starting over again. And all of that was, 24, 48 hours later. So avoid that delay in business effectiveness by really thinking about the facts and ideas that you need to include. That means why should readers do what you want them to do, or what do they need to know to do that or to be informed fully. Okay, so we also, as we're moving through email, need to make sure that email is the appropriate format for your message. Okay, appropriate means a lot of different things. Is it most effective in your business culture? Is it most appropriate in terms of content? Is it sensitive? Is it confidential? If so, of course, it does not belong in an email. Many people would say that if it doesn't belong on the front page of the New York Times, it does not belong in your email either. So gossipy, backhanded information, any of that does not live in email. It could be forwarded to anyone at any time. This is an example again from of inappropriate information. Thanks for filling me in at the meeting yesterday. I owe you one. By the way, I heard your manager is thinking about leaving the company. We heard about it in gymnastics. Keep it to yourself for now. Do you really feel safe sending that in email? Humor is another thing that can be very risky in email. Depends on your business culture and business climate, but again, remember that your email could be forwarded to anyone at any time, and it's oftentimes can get you in trouble. So again, the triage that we talked about earlier will help you formulate your purpose for writing email. Are you writing to inform or writing to influence, otherwise known as writing to persuade? Be clear about what your purpose is at the beginning. That will help you get your purpose accomplished, right? So are you answering or asking a question? Are you verifying information? Are you sending someone a document that they might read at a later date? Promoting a good idea? Just making your opinion known? Defending your point of view? Justifying a request? Okay, so are you writing to give advice? To convince someone to take action? To sell something? Ask for help? To thank someone? Okay? So always make sure you've come back to that. What is your reader's point of view? Especially again with email, make sure you know what is your relationship with that person. Are they expecting the message? How much does the reader already know about this subject? Okay? Are they likely to take information or action or make a decision or be informed? Okay? What's their interest in this subject? What are their concerns? How are they likely to feel about this message? Plan how you'll write to the people you don't know, and this oftentimes happens with email, that you're writing people you don't know or don't know well. How are you going to find out more about them? Okay, so primary research will help. If I'm in a classroom with people, they're oftentimes sharing ideas. And we're using different tools online, like even Google or LinkedIn or different kind of social media sites that you have access to. Find out whatever you can about that person. Interview others, maybe call their assistant, their associate, somebody that you know, to find out what is really going to motivate this person. What do they care about? That's how you know how to frame your message. You need to know more about your audience. Okay, so don't stop asking questions about them. And then if you have more than one person reading an email, you need to consider that. Some people need more background information than others, and some people have less technical knowledge than others. Is your purpose for some different than others? There's different philosophies on this, but generally email is transactional in nature. Okay, so if you're giving lots of technical information to somebody and your message has become complex, or you're writing to a large audience with different needs, you need to go back and ask yourself that question: is email appropriate? Is it more appropriate to call a meeting to discuss? Maybe you want to send out the information as background for the most important piece, which is a meeting to discuss the content inside. So again, think about email in conjunction with phone, presentations, meetings. They go well in conjunction, but oftentimes email's not the right tool for the job. So as a reminder, keep in mind that people read email very quickly. Generally, you have about 20 seconds to get your message across to people. That's how quickly they're reading email. So think about the person that you're writing to and the kind of volume that they're dealing with. Lots of detail may get overlooked, or maybe actually a reason to discard your email. So make sure you've thought carefully about how your reader is reading email and your email. Again, identifying the most important message. Make sure you know if you need to ask someone a question. When can I expect to receive the specifications for the new system? How long will it take to get preliminary cost estimates? Can your team meet with me while I'm in town next Thursday? Okay, so take the time to think about specifically what you're trying to get out of this email. Maybe you want to get approval for an idea or a course of action. What's the key benefit they should grasp? Our marketing group has concluded that we could raise our prices by 10% without losing sales. People want probably more information about that, but if that's the key benefit they should grasp, we definitely want to hit that first. Okay, so benefits are generally aligned with your reader. You want to make sure you have aligned your benefits and your reader together. Readers are generally looking for the what's in it for me, and that's generally linked to a benefit of some sort or something they need to pay attention to. The task force recommends we include a gym at the design of the new site. If you agree to add 4 weeks to the project timetable, we can take advantage of seasonal discounts for workout equipment. Okay, so again, making sure you want to get approval or you want to share your most important message quickly. So here's an example. Sarah wants to tell a prospective consultant, Jeremy, that her team is considering his firm for a project. Her main point is that our management team was impressed with Jeremy's presentation, and his firm is one of the 3 finalists for the project. So Sarah thinks about what questions Jeremy is likely to have. She drafts this list of questions as a strategy to group her ideas. What information was most useful? Is there other information you need? When can we expect your decision? So then she answers her questions as a process for completing the content outline. She groups her ideas around the questions she's formulated. So what information was most useful? thought about it. Answer is your experience with projects like ours and the way you handled problems. Another question, is there any other information you need from us? Yes, the bios of proposed subcontractors. And when can we expect your decision? Within 2 weeks. So here's a formulated response. Dear Jeremy, our management team was very impressed by the highly informative and entertaining presentation you gave at our regional meeting. I'm pleased to tell you that your firm is one of 3 finalists for the XYZ project. The factors that weigh heavily in your favor are your experience with projects like ours and the ways you handled problems that came up during those projects. Before we make our final decision, we need one more thing from you, biographical information about your proposed subcontractors. We hope to make a decision within 2 weeks. Regards, Sarah. Okay, well planned, has a nice opening, has a nice closing. Notice how the sentences are short, the paragraphs are short. It's inviting, answers the reader's questions, okay? So remember, we always want to organize our information into the same way we learned in elementary school. We have a theme and then the ideas that hang under that theme. So clearly organized, well-presented information, all right? So some questions you want to ask yourself if you're ever stuck in this process. Did you jump right into writing without thinking about your purpose, audience, main point, and the questions? Did you add any extra information? Okay, have you shifted direction midstream? Are you trying to present too much information? Do you have several unrelated messages to convey, or are you writing to multiple readers with different needs? So I'd like to include here my favorite Mark Twain quote. He said, "I would have written you a short letter, but I didn't have time, so I wrote a long one." So what does that tell us? It tells us that for 100 years, people have been looking and hoping for short letters, but oftentimes receiving long ones instead. It is also much more difficult to write short, concise messages, memos, documents, reports, emails, than it is to write long ones. It's very difficult to write clearly and succinctly and concisely. But in order to make yourself shine, you can do it and you will do it. You'll apply these principles to write shorter messages to people. So you may have some templates to save time. They may work magic in your organization. Make sure, though, that you've adjusted your templates. I just received one a couple weeks ago from someone that clearly had recycled a template and made an error in customizing it. It was clearly a sloppy error, but definitely was enough to dissuade me from reading the rest of it. So make sure you use templates if they're going to save you time, but when you customize them, do that carefully. That's where, of course, proofreading plays in as well. What do we know about email and what we've learned from email and mobile devices? All right, what do we know there? We've learned that in social media, messages are short. We know that many of us have been trained or prefer now to see short messages, again, just like Mark Twain. We need to reduce the length for lengthy responses, reduce the need for lengthy responses, right? Because oftentimes we are responding to mail on our phone or tablet. So it's great if you can send out messages that require only a short response instead of a long and complex one. That's where I was saying earlier, email is so much a really great transactional tool. Make sure it's important enough to send an email right away. Okay, so oftentimes sometimes you may want to wait until you are back at a full screen monitor or whatever portal you use to send email, so that you can make sure that the formatting's right, that it doesn't look like you slapped it off. Describe attachments. That's really important in today's mobile environment, because generally people will not click on attachments unless they see a really good reason to to do so. So great reason, great strategy there is to describe the attachment in your email. That gives people a reason either to click on the attachment or to move on. So main point of this attachment, for example, I'm including you with this email. I've attached the quarterly report from December. You'll see that we surpassed our goals by 15%. Let me know if you have questions when you've had a chance to look it over. All right, so give them the main point and describe maybe even what else is in that quarterly report. Visualize your message on screen, on whatever screen it may end up, and make sure again that it goes back to, is email appropriate for this message, okay? So tone is a big issue with email, and oftentimes people are looking carefully to strike the right tone. Make sure that you've struck one that's friendly, professional, courteous, especially if you're in customer service of any form. And make sure that you've read over your email. I have worked with thousands of people, and I always ask this question. Who has sent an angry email before? And a couple people will raise their hand. And then I ask, who's happy about that angry email they sent? And then nobody raises their hand. So if you're angry in email, if you absolutely need to write the email, don't include anyone in the to line, and certainly don't send it until you've had a chance to cool off. All right, so there may be other ways to work this through besides email, because nobody's ever happy about an angry email or a rude email that they've sent in the moment. Salutations are another way to control tone, to set the tone with your reader. You want to choose a salutation that's appropriate for that reader. We have a few examples here. Maybe it's Dear Mr. Walensky, Dear Bob, Hello Bob, Hi Bob, or maybe it's just Bob. Dear clients, to my clients, hi team, hi everyone, hello associates. Some of these are better than others. Which ones are best? The best ones are those where you are able to make a connection to the audience. We have a quote in our email book that says that calls on the power of personalization. So it says that basically the closer you can be to the person that you're writing to, the more of a connection you are forming with that person. So an anonymous group is generally a way for people to detach from the information, especially if it's a request. But calling people by name, you're more likely to get their attention. So when somebody writes, Dear Natasha, generally they've got my attention, or maybe it's 3 people that the message is addressed to, but again, including our names draws us into the message, or some association. Maybe we're part of a small project team, but an anonymous salutation or no salutation generally makes less of a connection with the reader. Let's take a look at this example because it pulls together a lot of the problems or challenges that we've presented here. So take a look through here. What do we see in this? I think the first thing we see is a long, dense paragraph, right? That's what jumps out at me especially. As well as some opportunities to use specific language. We talk there's another course on email, and in it we get into more detail on email subject lines. Okay, in our email subject lines, we have some guidelines for writing effective subject lines. One thing I will leave you with is to make sure that you make yours specific, descriptive, concise, and clear. So task force matters can probably be improved. All right, so it sounds like there's a lot of jumbled thoughts in this long, dense paragraph, as well as a main point that might be buried at the end. How are we going to improve the subject line, as well as fix some of the errors? We are going to include perhaps a call to action in the subject line. All right, that's going to make a much more engaging subject line. And then making sure that our main point is at the beginning, the task force findings are in. Please let me know by tomorrow if you're ready to report on these details in Friday's meetings with HR. Oh, wow. And then the writer here broke the content into bullet points. Here are the main findings, and there they are in parallel form, starting all with capital letters. We covered the guidelines for using bullet points previously in our professional writing skills course. Make sure that your guidelines, your lists follow these basic guidelines. And then, wow, a great closing here. Being specific, wrapping up, restating the main point. It's a nice way to close a message. So apply this 5-step planning process to everything you write to anyone, right? It's adaptable, it's customizable. Follow the 5 steps and then work through the process for writing a first draft, including salutations, closings, making sure the body of your email is easy to read. Think about the sentence level challenges and opportunities that present themselves, and then think specifically about how these tips, strategies, and tools apply to email and other documents that you write for work. Our objectives in this course were to get to the point quickly, to proofread accurately, to develop clear and well-organized paragraphs, on the sentence level to write clearly, concisely, clearly, and directly, and when appropriate to write persuasively. As a recap, in part 1 of Professional Writing Skills, we covered the criteria for effective business writing. We worked through a 5-step planning process that you can apply to writing any document to anyone, and we covered the components of a first draft, including openings, closings, and lists. And in part 2, we covered active language, specific language, and plain English. We talked about strategies to reduce clutter and sentence structure, punctuation, and grammar highlights. We worked through some editing and proofreading tactics, and we covered effective email. I wish you good luck as you apply all these strategies to the next important document that you write. Hopefully, in play, all of these strategies together will increase the results and improve your professional image at work.